Thank you so much, guys, for being here. I appreciate you and you taking the opportunity to come and learn more and make yourself better. So today we're talking about nutrition, and as Chip was saying, just brief background, I have some advanced degrees in nutrition, and my whole life has been a pursuit of learning as much as I could about how to be, 1, a better athlete, 2, to be a better coach, 3, to be a better nutritionist and to understand as much as I possibly could. And it all started for me when I was a junior in high school. My first football scrimmage of the year, junior year of high school, I tore my ACL, which was absolutely devastating for me because I had every hope and dream of becoming a collegiate athlete playing football. And we all know the importance of our junior year, right? It's a pivotal year when it comes to becoming a standout athlete. And talking about mindset, I made the decision at that time to do everything in my power to get myself back to where I need to be the athlete that I wanted to be, which meant embracing the rehab process. I became fascinated with the rehab process. I became fascinated with strength and conditioning. And then similarly is understanding what I needed to do to set myself apart from everyone else, which I realized very quickly for me was on the nutritional side of things in terms of how I could separate myself, because I wasn't an elite athlete. So I needed to do everything in my power to get myself to the next level. Long story short, I did end up playing a year of college ball at a Division III level. Realized it wasn't for me, but I then transferred schools and I played rugby for the University of Arizona, and I played at a very high level for a very long time, including some international level rugby, continuing to pursue my passion for strength and conditioning and for nutrition. And throughout that process, I was coaching athletes, I was coaching general population, and we started a company called BSL Nutrition, which stands for Body Systems Labs. And so what we do is we help people be more productive by formulating high-quality nutritional supplements as well as do high-end nutritional coaching. And I had the opportunity, I've had the opportunity to work with multiple organizations. Most recently, I was able to consult with the Golden State Warriors prior to their championship season last year. And through my 15 years of coaching, there's multiple resounding principles that we'll go through, but one premise that keeps coming to fruition, and that is, it doesn't have to be complex, even on the highest level caliber. When we're talking about the most elite athletes, there's a few principles that keep presenting themselves that we'll talk about today that are going to be the biggest drivers for you to be the most successful athlete you can, at least from a nutritional standpoint. And so what is this nutritional hierarchy that I'm talking about? Well, there's a few things. First is food portions, second is the types of foods that we're eating, and third is the timing of those foods. Okay, what does that mean? It means how much food we're eating, how much of the which foods, and when we're eating those foods. At the most fundamental level, how much food we're eating on a daily basis is going to be the main driver of how successful you are in sport. Okay? Doesn't necessarily matter which types, although yes, it does matter, and I'll go into why, but the most fundamental level, how much we're eating on a daily basis matters much, then what types of foods, and then when we eat those foods. Now, how many of you, let me ask you a question, how many of you want to gain muscle mass? Probably pretty much everyone, right? And so it's very important that we are understanding how much food we need to be eating on a daily basis, because if you're not eating enough food, you are not going to be putting on muscle mass. Plain and simple. Therefore, it's seemingly simple. All you need to do is eat more food. And it really can be as easy as that. Before we talk more about how much you should be eating, I want to create more clarity on the types of foods. Okay, just so that we're all on the same page as far as what I'm talking about when I say protein, when I say carbohydrate, when I say fats. What am I talking about? And before we talk about protein, carbs, and fats, let's just talk about eating real food. Right? Food that Mother Nature intended for us to eat. Food that comes from animals that graze on grass, plants from the ground, food that's grown from the earth. Seemingly simple, complex process, but becoming increasingly difficult with modern day food processing. Okay, but we're always going to be better off eating food more in its natural form. Why? Is because it's going to have so much more nutritional value. Why is that important? Because it's the vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients and trace minerals and antioxidants that we are constantly using to provide energy to our cells, for our cells to provide energy to our body, for our body to manufacture new cells and tendons and joints and ligaments and new muscle tissue and new brain tissue. And all of those things are happening because of the foods, from the foods that we're putting in. So one of the things, that I was talking a lot about with the Golden State Warriors was these guys are going to perform at a high level no matter what they're eating, right? I mean, it's just the nature of the beast. These guys are freak genetic athletes. But where nutrition can make is a major difference for them is the longevity of their career. If we think about the fact that our cells are constantly turning over, right? We're constantly replacing dead cells in our body with nutrients from the food that we're eating. Well, by that rationale, if we're putting junk into our body, then our cells and our joints and our ligaments and our tendons and our muscles are becoming made up of that junk food. Conversely, if we're putting good nutrition in our body, then of course those cells and ligaments and tendons are becoming made up of those high quality foods. Does that make sense? And so from a longevity of your career standpoint, for these guys have millions upon millions of dollars on the line for their career. So it's in their best interest to extend their career beyond just 2 or 3 years and say, hey, I want to play 8, 9, 10 plus years in the league. And this for them is where nutrition becomes very important. But for you guys, okay, we're talking about the difference between putting on 5, 10, 15, 20 pounds of lean muscle tissue. What's that going to do to your strength? What's that going to do to your power, to your throwing velocity? All of those types of things. So we want to talk about real food versus processed food. Obviously, processed food is those foods that have a long shelf life, that are highly processed, have multiple ingredients. Now, it doesn't make these good or bad. There's no such thing as good or bad foods, but there's a time and a place for everything. And so when we talk about real food versus processed food, we can talk about, okay, well, what about the number of ingredients? Obviously, a chicken breast is going to be better than a chicken breast patty. How many ingredients does a chicken breast have? Just one. How many ingredients does a chicken breast patty have? I don't know, maybe 10, 12, right? Because it's been broken down, processed, artificial ingredients put back into it, molded back together, breaded. Okay, does it make it bad? No, it doesn't make it bad at all. But you can always be making a better decision. And it's those better decisions made consistently that are going to make the biggest difference for you. And that's what high performers do on a consistent basis. They eat the better foods consistently. Okay, Tom Brady, we talk about the TB12 method. What he's done throughout his career is he's been incredibly consistent. Okay, same thing, steel-cut oats versus Cheerios. Okay, neither one is good or bad. Okay, but steel-cut oats, we're going to have a lot more nutritional value. We're going to have a lot more fiber. It's going to be broken down slower. Your body's probably going to utilize it more effectively versus a bowl of Cheerios, a little more processed, many more ingredients. You guys get the idea. Okay, so where do we find these real foods? We find them on the perimeter of the grocery store, right? We have our meats, our fruits, our vegetables, our whole grains. Okay, seemingly simple. Okay, seemingly simple complex, including some things that may come in some packages or cans like lentils and oatmeal and some canned tomatoes and stuff like that. And so just giving you guys a better idea of what is real food. And so like I said, can we be eating these real foods more consistently, right? I have my whole foods continuum, and we want to be staying closer towards the right side of this continuum as much as possible, because the foods that we're eating, either they're moving us closer towards our goals or they're moving us further away. Okay? So that doesn't mean that pizza and Pop-Tarts and candy is a bad thing. You're going to eat it, and that's totally cool. Okay? But can we be making better decisions more frequently? And so what are these proteins? Okay, proteins are meat and fish and eggs and chicken and some nuts and seeds. Okay, you guys know that stuff. Dairy products. Why is protein important? Because protein is amino acids. These amino acids are the building blocks of our joints and our muscles and our tendons, and they help improve our immune system and our detoxification processes, and they're absolutely crucial. If you guys want to put on muscle mass, you better be getting enough protein in your diet, okay? Carbohydrates. You've heard carbohydrates. What are carbohydrates? They're our body's immediate fuel source, not only for our muscles, but are from our brain, or for our brain, right? They're our bread, our pasta, our rice, our potatoes, there are our Gatorades, there are juices, there are fruit, okay? Again, neither good or bad, but they're going to be highly dependent on the type of sport, how frequently we're training, the type of training that we're doing, the intensity of the training that we're doing, okay? Carbohydrate needs are going to be very different for a long-distance runner than a sprinter, okay? And for your body type, which we'll get into. And then fats, right? Our third, what we call essential nutrient or macronutrient. And fats are important because they are the building blocks for all of the hormones in our body. Hormones like testosterone that help us improve energy and lay down new muscle tissue. They're important because fats are part of our cell structure. They're part of our brain structure. And so it's imperative we get enough of the right types of fats, things like fats from our meats, from nuts and seeds, from olives, from avocado, from olive oil, from coconut oil, healthy types of fats versus a lot of the fats that we tend to eat in our diet coming from things like trans fats, from fried foods, from cookies and cakes and pastries and things like that. Again, it's not good or bad. It's just, can we be consuming more of those healthy fats? And so I'm giving you guys, you'll be getting a whole bunch of guidelines from me in terms of food chart, food timing, helping you guys determine what is going to be the right amount of protein, carbs, and fats for you based on your body type, okay? And so when we talk about food portions, there's a few things that we have to keep in mind. Like I said, food portions is the most important component, okay? And what we're talking about is an energy balance. Has anyone heard the term energy balance before? Okay, essentially, if we want to put on weight, we need to be taking in more calories than we're expending. Okay, very simply. So if we were talking about weight management, we're in an isocaloric balance. The amount of calories we're taking in is the same as the amount of calories we're expending on a daily basis. If we're trying to lose weight, we need to be burning more calories. We need to be in a negative caloric balance or a negative energy balance, okay, versus weight gain, which a lot of you guys raised your hands, so you want to lay down muscle tissue, you need to eat more calories than you're expending on a daily basis. Plain and simple. Does that make sense? Okay, so what are our goals? Okay, you guys want to lay down new muscle tissue. What sports are involved? Okay, how much muscle mass do you need to put on for that sport depending on the time of year? What are the energy requirements of that sport? What is the time of year, the season, and how is your body responding to these nutrients? How do you need to fuel your body effectively to reach those goals? Okay, so talking about biochemical individuality, what is that? It's our body's own genetic differences that determine how we handle these protein, carbs, and fats. Okay, just as we all look different, just as we all have different fingerprints, we're all going to respond differently to the types of foods that we're eating. Okay, so some of you, and we all have different body types, some of us are long and lean, some of us have an easier time burning body fat, some of us have an easier time putting on muscle tissue than others. Okay, and so we have a few different body types. This is called your somatotype. And there's no clear cut. All of us are going to fall somewhere in between. But it's important to identify these as it relates to your servings of protein, carbs, and fats, because your body type is going to determine how easy or difficult it is for you to accomplish those physique-related goals. Okay, so an ectomorph is someone that's naturally long and lean. These are your hard gainers, right? If you've been hitting the gym and you're just having a hard time putting on muscle tissue. Okay, is that anyone in this room? Feel like they're a hard gainer? Yeah, naturally long and lean, you feel like you can eat whatever you want, as much as you want, and you still can't gain a pound, right? Conversely would be an endomorph, someone that just naturally is heavier set, feels like they put on weight very easily. Some of us adults may feel like we're in that phase of life right now. And then there's the people in between called a mesomorph. That's someone who's naturally has more muscle mass, doesn't have a too terribly difficult time maintaining lean body tissue. They tend to fall kind of right in between. Now, why is this important? Because it's a continuum. Okay, so an ectomorph is someone that's going to do really well with high amounts of carbohydrate, but probably not so well with high amounts of fat. Okay, and conversely, an endomorph is someone that really needs to keep their carbohydrate intake lower and is going to respond better to higher fat intake. This is just genetically how we metabolize these nutrients. Okay? And so that's where the biochemical individuality comes in. So we're going to talk about, aside from the individuality, we're going to talk about some easy ways where you can start to determine how much food you should be eating and how to determine how to choose, how to measure those foods out, because it's not going to be realistic for you to count your calories, nor would I ever want you to. You don't need to do that. But we do want to create more awareness. Okay? How do you know how much protein, carbs, fats, veggies you're consuming on a daily basis? Well, this is where we use the hand scale. Okay? It's something that you always have with you that you can use to create more awareness from meal to meal. And so, very simply, we say, okay, well, 1 serving of protein is going to be about the size of the palm of your hand. And now, I've got all of these guidelines for you guys, so you don't need to write anything down. I just want you to pay attention, but I do want you to think about if there's specific questions you have, then write those down so we can answer them later. But, okay, protein, I talked about the importance, so how much protein should we be consuming? Well, 1 serving of protein is about the size of the palm of your hand, okay? We want to be consuming enough veggies throughout the day. 1 serving of veggies is about the size of the fist of your hand. Okay? Carbohydrates, if we talk about rice or pasta or potatoes, 1 serving is about a cupped hand portion. And fats, if we talk about like olive oil or butter or nuts and seeds, it's about the size of your thumb. Okay? So it's a really easy way that we can use to start to measure our food portions. So proteins, for most of you guys, we want to be shooting for 2 palm-sized portions of protein per meal per day. Okay? Pretty seemingly simple. It gives us a really good place to start. All right, 2 palms of protein. 1 palm is about 20 to 30 grams of protein. Some of you have pretty massive hands. Some of you have smaller hands. Okay, so it's going to depend, but somewhere around 2 palms of protein per meal per day. Okay, our vegetables, 2 fists of vegetables. So about 2 cups of vegetables per meal per day. Okay. Carbohydrates, 2 cupped hands. Okay, so it would be about half a cup or so of rice or pasta or potato or oats, something like that, with each of your meals. That's about 25 grams of carbs. Again, I don't want you to worry about the numbers, but it is important to establish a little more awareness from meal to meal. Healthy fats, 2 thumb-sized portions. So for males, it's going to be 2 of each of these. To keep things simple, for females, it's going to be more like 1 of these. And again, this is totally going to depend on your energy needs, your energy demands, the sport that you're playing, your body type. But this gives us a really good place to start. And then, of course, we have hydration. Now, I'm not going to go too in-depth in hydration, but just as a general guideline, we want to be shooting for half of our body weight in ounces of water per day. Okay, so for someone who's, let's just say you're 150 pounds, you want to be consuming about 75 ounces of water per day. Okay, now we all live in Arizona. Obviously, it gets hot here. We're sweating more, so that could easily be closer to 3/4 of your body weight in ounces of water per day. Okay, so it's just going to be dependent. Now again, I've given you guys some guidelines that Chip's going to mail out, but some starting guidelines for you to start to create your own meal plans based on how much protein, carbs, and fats you should be taking in throughout the day. So we talked about food portions, right? How much we're eating. Do we need to be in a positive caloric balance, positive energy balance, or a negative energy balance? And most of us want to be in a positive energy balance if we're looking to lay down new muscle tissue, repair muscle tissue from injury, repair muscle tissue from training, all of those types of things. Okay, which means you need to take in more calories than you're expending on a daily basis. Okay, then we talked about the types of foods that we're eating, the protein, carbs, and fats, how we want to be getting most of these foods from real food sources as much as possible. Okay, now we're talking about food timing. Now the cool part about food timing, in terms of first, how many meals per day do we need to be eating? Now how many of you heard you should be eating 6 meals per day to stoke the metabolism, to make sure you're getting enough nutrition? The cool part about food timing is that it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter how many meals per day we're eating as long as we're getting in the caloric need, as long as we're getting in our caloric needs. So you could eat twice a day, you could eat 8 times a day. It doesn't really matter that much as long as you're getting those calories in. But what we recommend is typically 3 to 6 times a day, every 3 to 4 hours. Okay? And so you do what's most realistic for you. And don't worry so much about how frequently I need to eat. With that said, we want to be eating the majority of our calories around our training window. Okay, that's when our body's going to respond the best to the nutrition that we're putting in. That's when our muscles and liver and cells are going to utilize carbohydrates the best. And so one easy way to think about nutritional timing is to be taking in the majority of your calories and your carbohydrates. So remember I talked about rice, pasta, potatoes, even carbohydrates from your drinks like Gatorade, like juice, like fruit. Okay, your body's going to respond the best by taking these nutritional sources in and around those workouts. Okay, so that's going to be like eating, let's just say we're training in the morning, having oatmeal and an omelet for breakfast, and then we go and train, and then maybe we're drinking a Gatorade or Body Armor or something with some sugar in it, depending on the type and intensity of the training. And then we finish and we have a post-workout shake because our body's primed to be taking nutrition into the cells to feed the muscles, to feed the liver, to help replenish all of those energy stores that we just went through. Okay, followed up by maybe a big meal of chicken and rice and some veggies. Okay, maybe we can get the bolus, the majority of our carbohydrate in that window. Right? So that's what our pre, during, post-exercise training looks like, and I've got more examples for you guys. But the majority of our carbs, as I said, can be taken up in and around that workout window. Now, if you're training multiple times per day, then that's fine. You can be taking in carbs in and around multiple workouts. But generally speaking, most people will respond best that way. So like I just talked about, is more carbs. Let's say we train in the morning, then we would want to typically have more carbohydrate from those sources that we talked about in the morning versus less carbs and more fats later on in the day, especially if you're of the body type that's more of an endomorph versus a hard gainer versus more of an ectomorph, okay? Most of you guys are pretty long and lean, which means you have the benefit of taking in a lot of carbohydrate multiple times per day so that you can keep your energy levels and that energy capacity high. Okay, so I've got for you a pre-workout meals guide that you're going to get because, again, nutrition is a pretty complex, seemingly complex topic, although it doesn't need to be. Okay, so you guys are going to be getting this, and then you've got a bunch of examples of meals to be fueling yourself both before, during, and after your workouts, specifically before and after. Okay, so like we talked about, JERF, just eat real food, okay, the majority of the time. We want to eat for our body type and our sports demands. Okay, we want to be realistic and consistent. Most people that are successful with their nutrition are consistent. So they do pretty good all the time with their nutrition. And that's the way we want to think about it is, again, nutrition's seemingly complex, but it doesn't have to be if we can just focus on these 3 main principles. And so that's what I typically say, be pretty good all the time versus great Sometimes. Again, there's no good or bad food, so if you guys can just go day to day, start to learn more about nutrition and create more awareness around how are you building out your plates from meal to meal? How many servings of protein are you having at each meal? Are you hitting your protein needs on a daily basis? Okay, rather than worrying about calories or measuring things out, you know, we can just use our hand as a measuring tool. Am I hitting veggies? Okay, if I have, let's say as an example, you know, everyone's getting pizza in the cafeteria. Well, there's certainly nothing wrong with pizza, but can you be doing something to make a better decision? Can you add a couple servings of veggies to the plate? Can you add a serving of protein to the plate? Is that going to help you move closer towards your goals? Absolutely. And if we can try and create that mindset around our nutrition, then we're going to be much better off. So some of the guidelines that I've got coming your way: food chart, a nutrition guide, a daily meal planner, basic supplement guide. Supplement's way too complex to go into right now, and it's something that should be an afterthought for you guys. You should be covering the majority of what you need from your nutrition. 95% of what you need you can get from real food. Okay? So worry about that first before you spend any time and energy worrying about supplementation. Okay, pre-workout meals guide, recipes, and I've got an awesome post-workout recovery shake guide for you guys. So we do talk a little bit about supplementation as it pertains to like a whey protein, getting carbs in post-workout. It's really an ideal time for you guys to be getting a lot of nutrition and calories in to repair from those workouts. And then similarly I do own a supplement company, and what we did is we formulated a comprehensive workout product with no stimulants and no artificial sweeteners. That's basically an easily digestible protein that's going to help drive more energy during your workouts and facilitate faster recovery. And we've got some samples for you guys on one of the tables out there at the next intermission. That's it. If you guys want any more information, by all means contact me through social media, and you're welcome to email me at any time. And thank you so much. I appreciate you guys.